go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members of the committee. My name is Jackie Cobb, and I'm here to speak on behalf of my 23-year-old daughter, Madison Cobb, whose life was brutally taken away from her by her ex-boyfriend on July 19, 2025, in a parkade in Calgary. Before Madison could get into her car to come home to her family, she was gunned down by her ex-boyfriend, leaving her dead at the scene. I'm thinking of my Maddie. Think of your own daughter, or sister, or niece. Now picture them left to bleed to death, with no one there to help them. Imagine their fear. My Maddie was a bright, passionate, respectful, cheery, and accomplished young lady. She excelled academically, was a competitive swimmer, and had just begun a promising career as a surgical eye assistant at LASIK MD. Her life was full of potential. Madison deeply impacted and connected with people. She was on a mission to save individuals who needed saving, even if it was just helping, guiding, or just being a friend for those who didn't have one. She was always there when called upon, always lending a hand and never complaining to help others. She was a girl with strong family values, was a best friend, and always saw the bigger picture in life. She was an old soul, acting beyond her years. She cared about people, something most of us have lost throughout the years. Although she is no longer with us, today Madison continues to try to help others. By my appearing before you, I represent her desire to find justice in a system that failed her when she needed it the most. My Maddie followed every legal avenue to ensure her safety. A restraining order was granted on June 10, 2025, against her offender, who also had 2 criminal harassment charges against him for stalking her, and was released on bail on June 10th and June 17th. He was known to have a firearm in his possession as well. The restraining order did not do its job. It was a piece of paper with meaningless words. The judge knew about the criminal harassment charges and the known firearm when Madison was finally granted the restraining order, yet nothing stopped him from walking out the court, free to plan and carry out this horrific act. Madison deserved to live without fear. She was not protected by the system. Madison became a victim of a violent crime and paid the ultimate price. This was not a moment of anger. Every action was calculated. He stalked her, he waited for her, and he executed his plan. The nature of this deliberate act should automatically remove any possibility of bail or leniency. He chose to take her life. He should be held accountable. I stand here before you on behalf of Maddie and the thousands of women and men who have been impacted by domestic violence. Maddie is not the first person to suffer at the hands of the legal system, and she will not be the last, unless a stand is taken to change the current system. Please, I urge Parliament to enact stronger consequences for the repeat offenders and those who breach protective orders. Early intervention, such as mandatory evaluations and monitoring the offenders, this could prevent escalation and save lives. We must prioritize the right to live a life protected by law in safety from such criminals. How many innocent people need to die, like my young daughter Madison, for legislation to change? We all know the law is broken. We hear legislation might change, but it never does. Parliament has the knowledge, the power, and the authority to make the necessary changes to implement stronger sentencing now, before more innocent lives are taken. The system needs to change. Why are we so forgiving and give the offenders so many chances? The criminals know our system and its loopholes, and they are taking advantage of it. Please protect the innocent. Criminals should not have the same rights as you and I. My life has changed forever. I will never see my child walk through that front door with her incredible smile, knowing she is safe. I can't kiss her goodnight, say I love you, or call her when something is exciting. I won't have the joy of seeing her walk down the aisle or having kids of her own. All I have left are photos and videos to help her remember every detail of her appearance and listen to her voice on tape so I can hear how she spoke my name. I hold her clothes so tight so I can remember how she smelled, and I hum her favorite song in my head all the time because I don't hear it blaring from her room any longer. Now, I have to look at an empty chair at my dining room table where she sat when we ate. I walk past her room with a constant sadness of the good times we shared in that room. There will be no more treasured family vacations we love taking together. Now, I have a constant worry. My family will fall apart because of this crime, like so many other families have. I stand here today to advocate for change, so no other family endures this pain. You never think it will happen to you until it does. You can make the difference. Hold them accountable on their first offense, so this tragedy won't become your nightmare as I am living for the rest of my life. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Basil-Cobb, and your courage in testifying today. We will go directly to Ms. Alexander and then to Mr. Broadfoot.
Love you, honey. Thank you to the members of the committee. I want to begin by commending you on what has clearly been a tremendous success, a justice system so efficient, so protective, and so flawlessly designed that victims and survivors across this country have nothing to fear. And I honestly don't think that we need to be here today, so we might as well just go home. But we can't go home, because none of the aforementioned is remotely accurate or truly reflective of the graveyard of preventable deaths that Canada has become. My name is Kate Alexander. I'm a model, actress, artist, and founder of End Violence Everywhere, a registered charity in Canada serving survivors of intimate partner violence, sexual assault, and gender-based violence. On July 31st, 2021, I was nearly killed by my former partner in Leaside in Toronto. Despite the severity of the attack, having photo and video evidence of him nearly beating me to death, despite the tactical team coming to my home, despite 8 charges he faced, he was released on bail almost immediately for $500, and I've never even had a criminal trial for my attempted murder because all 8 of his charges timed out under Jordan's rule. I don't even have a peace bond because it expired. I lived in hiding for months after the attack before being forced to move to the United States. And had I not left Canada, he probably would have been successful in his quest to end my life. He nearly did that to the woman he dated after me, and I found out the one before me as well. The scariest part is my experience is not unique. It is common in Canada. Abuse is happening to women, children, and yes, men as well, every single day in this country without consequence. At my organization, we serve these survivors that we call the experts because they are the experts of these issues, their experience, and the horrors of not having a functional justice system. If you have not engaged with the system nor read the entirety of the Criminal Code of Canada, I would not call you an expert, regardless of your parliamentary title. We, the experts, call it the injustice system, and we live the damage that it does every single day. A most recent example is of a club promoter, Mark Holland, who notoriously has sexually assaulted dozens and dozens of women spanning generations. He is on the registered sex offender list, and this past August was released on bail for more sexual assault charges as free in the community once again. I met Mark when I was 18 years old outside of a nightclub on King Street West in Toronto, and something in my gut told me to stay away from him. My instinct was beyond accurate. Over the last decades, I have watched Mark Holland harm 8 of my friends and brutalize dozens and dozens of other young girls with impunity, and he's out on bail again. I have seen hospitality groups and clubs continue to hire him despite knowing what he does. I have seen him breach conditions repeatedly and still remain free, still working in nightlife venues, still hunting victims, still protected by systemic gaps that enable serial predators. It's almost as if the government wants this. Our team at EVE is supporting hundreds of survivors, and we receive thousands of disclosures online and directly through our advocacy channels. These are not fringe cases, these are Canadians. Primarily women and children who are unsafe in their homes, unsafe in their communities, and unsafe because the system that is supposed to protect them protects the abusers. The charter rights of criminals appear to outweigh the charter rights of victims. We are supporting survivors who sleep with bags packed by the door. We are supporting survivors who relocate provinces because their abuser was released. We are supporting survivors who have been told directly that the system cannot help them until something worse happens, until the blood is drawn. And even then, in those instances, as I know from personal experience, it's not enough. The only time it seems to be enough is when she's buried. We have to die, and then you care. Sort of. Dozens have been killed recently by partners who were released on bail despite clear histories of violence. Two of the parents of these women are testifying today, my friend, Jackie Cobbs and Brett Broadfoot, and it is my honor to call them my friends, but I wish I didn't have to meet them because their daughters were murdered in preventable death simply because the government doesn't have good policy and doesn't care. Don't tell me that you do care like you did, James Maloney, on October 28, 2024, when we met under former Minister of Justice Arif's reign. You promised me you would see our pleadings through. You promised me that having a family of lawyers helped you understand firsthand what we go through. You promised me that you cared, and you promised me that you would do something about the horrors of the Canadian criminal system. And I left your office that day hopeful. How stupid of me. You never called me again.
Ms. Alexander, your time is up.
All
If you
right,
could briefly
then leave it
conclude.
right there.
Thank you. Mr. Broadfoot, over to you for 5 minutes, please.
Good evening, committee. Thank you for having me here this evening. Again, my name is Brett Broadfoot, and I'm here to speak for my family, and most importantly, for my beautiful and now deceased daughter, Brianna. I hope also to speak on behalf of other victims of intimate partner violence. For all the women who continue to live in fear of their abusers because they are still out on the streets after being charged, with no accountability for their violent acts they have committed. I would like to share my family's personal experience at this time. On March 15th of 2024, my daughter Brianna was brutally attacked by her boyfriend. She was left with 2 black eyes, a fractured orbital bone, several other broken bones in her cheeks, and severe bruising around her neck from his hands having been wrapped around them in strangulation. She was only 16 years old at the time. Her attacker, aged 18, was arrested on March 15th and charged with assault plus assault with choking and suffocation or strangulation. He was released from custody on the same day he was arrested. He was sent, after being scheduled to attend court again on July 31st, 2024. He was sent with orders to not communicate, or go near my daughter, as well as refrain from possessing any weapons. We couldn't believe he was released, just allowed to continue as if nothing happened, while Brianna remained in the hospital struggling to recover from the injuries he had inflicted upon her. Our family felt that we had zero help or support during this time. We were set to sit alone with the knowledge that our attacker was just out there, unmonitored and unchallenged, ready to assault again whenever he wanted. Unfortunately, that thought came true. On July 16th, 2024, Brianna, now 17, was attacked again by the same individual, but this time in a much more serious way. At approximately 1 a.m. on July 17th, we were woken by the sound of a police sergeant knocking on our home door. We were told that our daughter had been taken to the critical care trauma unit at Victoria Hospital with multiple stab wounds. We were told that the same individual had abused her again. Brianna fought as hard as she could, but unfortunately passed away from her injuries on July 18th, 2024. We lost our baby girl. Our worlds have changed forever. To this day, I truly feel that Brianna could and should, could and should still be with us if her abuser had not been released after the original attack. or at least monitored. Our system completely failed us, just as it has failed so many others in the past. We need to stop the catch and release of arrested abusers now. Granting immediate freedom to an individual who has violently assaulted and hospitalized a defenseless young girl or woman is incomprehensible to me. The strangulation charge needs to be taken more seriously. It's holding someone's life in their hands. Letting them breathe or not breathe. Think about that. This is a high-risk factor that should make someone be considered a violent offender. How is it not? Our system allows offenders to exist, completely unmonitored as if nothing has happened. Survivors are forced to live in constant fear of being abused again by the same man. This is not right. I know we can do better. Let's work together to be part of the solution that stops this violence. Please take our heads out of the sand and make change now. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Broadfoot. We will now turn to Ms. Wambach from the Canadian Crime Victim Foundation as she's online. I'll just give it a few seconds for Luzanne for you to start speaking, but if we do hear you, then please proceed. You have 5 minutes.
Okay.
You'll need
Thank you for.
you'll need to turn your
sorry.
camera on if possible, Ms. Wambach.
Oh, sorry. I'm new at this, so
So am I.
hopefully, no, for some reason it's. Oh, okay.
Yeah, we
there
see
you
you.
go.
Please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you for inviting me here to speak about this very important issue. The entire court process is huge, causes huge stress and re-victimization for the victims and or the family members who are also very greatly affected and can be considered as victims as well. From lies told by the defense about the defense lawyers in court about the victim with impunity, to the victim service, which a lot of victims tell me make matters worse. And in our case, they didn't even offer to help us. We didn't get any help from them. And finally, and the terrible, terrible legislation around bail, parole, and sentencing. Offenders are let out on bail, receiving life sentences, and then out on parole, often to reoffend. Because after all, there's not enough parole officers to watch them. So what does that say about the value of the lost or compromised life? Well, the victim has no importance, no value, is disregarded, and is lost and alone. In our case, the 3 offenders were out on bail for 4 years before they were in court. The one who kicked my beautiful blue-eyed boy's head like a football into brain damage was out in the community wandering around free while we were imprisoned in the hospital, reoffending with impunity, as we found out by reliable word of mouth. After the release from the hospital, I was in constant fear that he would find my son at his new school, which wouldn't have been very difficult, and push him down the stairs or hit him in the head again, at which point he would surely die. I fell into desperate depression and panic attacks, feeling I could not keep Jonathan safe. And I couldn't. I had no control. But much, much worse than that, Jonathan was constantly terrified, having nightmares, night terrors, depression, often yelling that he wished he was dead, frequently suffering from brain injury rages, trying to hit his head against the cement floor, in our basement while Joel, my husband, and myself, we tried to restrain him, holding his head. And then afterwards, my husband slumped into the couch, clutching his chest. And soon after, he developed heart disease, which he suffers from terribly even now. After their short sentence was served, this was all repeated again. Jonathan suffered great emotional stress and saw an irresponsible social worker who used inappropriate therapy, contraindicated for any frontal lobe brain damage, resulting in false memory syndrome, concerning his childhood, causing him to become estranged from us for 11 years now. We are in absolute despair, and none of this would have happened if he wasn't kicked into brain damage. It was because of this crime, because of the attack. Olga Baranovsky, the mother of homicide victim Maddie Baranovsky, told me she was dead inside after the murder of her son, and in fact was found dead in her apartment all alone. Her life was over because of this crime. The victims are the true recipients of the life sentence, not the offenders. They go on with their lives. We don't. We suffer. Insomnia, depression, panic attacks, and other mental health issues, we are lost and alone and in pain. The offenders are let out and continue to receive free psychological support. In fact, the correctional investigators said recently that funding for psychological help for the inmates should be increased. But isn't it funny how there's no mention about the psychological support for victims? By the way, we received no psychological help unless we sought our own, at our own cost, of course. With this legislation, there will be more victims, more families will suffer, and there will be more re-victimization, and it will go on and on and on, affecting more and more people. And in closing, I just want to ask, there's a victims ombudsman in Ottawa. What are they doing? I haven't heard anything. And also another thing I wanted to mention was that it's so easy to find support and funding if you are
Ms.
starting a
Wambach,
group
your time is complete. Just take a few seconds to
Okay.
conclude if you could, and we'll have plenty of opportunity to ask you more questions.
Okay. So do you want me to just finish what I was saying, or?
Just if you could, in like 15 seconds.
Okay, well, just that the funding for the victim-initiated groups is like very hard to find. And thank you so much again for this opportunity.
Thank you. Colleagues, we'll do our best to get these 2 rounds in, so we'll go with Mr. Brock, Chang, Fortin, 6 minutes each, followed by Lawton, Maloney, Fortin, Babber, and Dillon. Over to you, Mr. Brock.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses for your attendance, particularly the witnesses who are here advocating on behalf of family members and personal experiences. My heart goes out to each and every one of you. In fact, my entire Conservative team will always stand in solidarity over victims, over accused, always. And one thing I want to highlight, and I feel like a broken record when I say this, the number one responsibility for a federal government is to keep us safe. This federal government, under the so-called leadership of Justin Trudeau and now Mark Carney, to you, Ms. Basil Cobb, has failed your daughter, has failed to implement the necessary changes to keep her safe, has failed to bring in mandatory detention in high-risk IPV cases, has failed you in terms of strict enforcement of no-contact orders, has failed you in terms of increasing sentences for violent repeat offenders. For the last 10 years, all that we have heard is promise after promise after promise and no deliverables. It started with C-75 when they made it easier for repeat violent offenders to be recycled through the justice system, catch and release. They followed up with C-5, eliminated mandatory minimum penalties for serious drug offenses, all drug offenses, and serious gun offenses. They made it easier for sick mass murderers like Paul Bernardo to be transferred from maximum security to medium security to enjoy the comforts. Because why not? Liberals have always favored the accused.
Yeah.
And to you, Ms. Wambach, your considerations and concerns, what about that victim ombudsperson? For almost a year and a half, this failure of a Liberal government did not appoint that person. And that person right now does not have the necessary tools to keep victims safe. So I apologize to you that your government has failed you so miserably. To you, Ms. Alexander, one thing that struck out to me as very important, your phrase, almost as if the government wants this. Can you elaborate on that?
I think it's pretty obvious that we have a problem here, and having, with a lot of my friends here, the social outreach of millions and millions of people saying, what is this government doing? Why are they favoring the criminals? Why are they not holding obviously dangerous people accountable? And I feel like a broken record. I feel like I'm banging my head against the same walls the way that my ex did to me. This government has been an extension of the abuse that my ex committed against me. And I don't understand what color of red they need the blood to be. How many of us have to die? How many times do we have to say, repeat, suffer before we get both sides of the government? This is a nonpartisan issue on the same team so that we put criminals away and protect the public.
Right. Yeah. And you specifically pointed out Mr. Maloney for making promises to you a couple of years ago. Have other members of the Liberal government made similar promises that were simply not kept?
I tend to use this experience. In April 2024, I sent a letter about my experience in the injustice system to Pierre, to Jagmeet, and to Justin. Pierre responded in 48 hours. Justin responded in 7 months, and Jagmeet never did. And then the committee meeting July 31st, 2024, where the Liberals and the NDP put a motion in about abortion, and I was forced to walk out of a committee meeting just like this, because clearly you have to know at this point that this is wrong, and that something needs to be done, and that this leniency to criminals is just going to end up killing more people. Clearly, you know that now. We are screaming it up the rooftops. It's in every single newspaper, every single headline. The media is frustrated with it. Why aren't you doing something about it? Seriously, something serious about it.
Ms. Alexander, and you're absolutely correct. For years, we've heard, it's all in the imagination of the minds of Canadians. It's not our problem, it's the provinces, it's provincial judges, it's lack of space, never accepting responsibility for their own abject failure. Now they brought forth Bill C-14, called the Bail and Sentencing Reform Act. There is one provision that increases sentencing. And you would think, given the myriad of serious violent offenses we have in this country, including IPV, you'd think they would address it? No. Their focus is on contempt of court. People who are subpoenaed to give evidence and choose not to, they want to increase the penalty from 6 months to 2 years less 1 day. It shows a lack of priority on that side of the House when it comes to your rights. That's what we'll fix.
Thank you, Mr. Brock. Mr. Chang for 6 minutes.
First of all, thank you all for being here with us today. Thank you for your courage. Your painful stories and your perspectives are very important to this committee. Protecting every daughter, every child, and every family is exactly why we are strengthening bail, toughening penalties, and investing in prevention, because safety is achieved through action, not slogan. Mr. Bradford, I'm deeply sorry for your loss. What gaps in the current bail process do you believe most directly endanger victims or the general public?
Well, Mr. Chang, I think it's already really been said, but I guess I'll reiterate it. Um, the gaps are widely huge. I mean, for my daughter's offender, who was charged with, as I mentioned in my testimonial, of strangulation. Why is this individual even being released with a piece of paper that says not to communicate, not to do this? It's worth about as much as the paper it's written on. We have no monitoring systems for these individuals once they're out. They go unchallenged every single day and are asked to appear for their charges 3 months later at best. So there's some severe gaps. Imagine yourself, somebody putting their hands around your neck and giving and deciding whether or not they were going to let you breathe. Should that not be a violent act? Should that person be allowed out on the same day they committed that act? So to answer your question, I think it's pretty obvious.
Thank you. And based on your experience, does Bill C-14 actually address the risks posed by violent repeat offenders? And if not, what amendment would you recommend?
Well, no, it doesn't. It was just mentioned by the panel as well. I would recommend that at the very least, if you're going to continue to tell us that these offenders cannot be incarcerated in due time and are just released, that is there not such a thing as house arrest? Is there not such a thing as proper monitoring systems? I mean, I believe we live in the year 2025. We have a lot of technology, a lot. And I think that we have the ability to do a better job monitoring these offenders and abusers than what we're doing now. And the archaic way that we form, allowing them to walk our streets, is literally killing people and leaving these women and girls and these people that are being abused to live in fear and hide. And I just don't buy it. I cannot believe that it is happening in our communities. I don't know if that answered your question exactly.
Yes, thank you, Mr. And my last question to you is, do you urge all parties to support this bail and sentencing reform and pass it without further delay?
I would absolutely ask the parties to, again, this is a nonpartisan issue. You need to come together. You need to understand. And at the very least, think about your own daughter, niece, mother, grandmother, whomever, best friend who may be a female. Think about them. Think how you would feel, how the ripple effect would affect you if they were attacked or taken from you in this manner. Let's come together here, people. Nonpartisan. Let's just do it.
Thank you, Mr. Bradford. And my next question goes to Ms. Cobb. I am very sorry for your loss, and thank you for standing up for your daughter today. Do you believe Bill C-14 goes far enough in addressing repeat violent offenders, or are there any additional measures you feel are missing?
Definitely not. The answer is no. Nothing can change what happened, but you guys can make the change. And having it stronger, making better decisions, you guys have the capability of doing it. All I can say is we talk about those changes for years, and I don't understand why we're so fearful. But I guarantee that if it was your daughter or sister, you wouldn't be as fearful and you'd make that change quicker.
And what messages would you like parliamentarians to hear from victims and families impacted by repeat violent offenders navigating the current justice system?
Actually, I'd say to the victims and their families, the system's busy. Judges are overworked. I'd say to the criminals, you know what, there's a lot of loopholes in our system. There's no consequence. You'll get a slap on your wrist, so have at her, because there's no justice.
Thank you, Mr. Chang.
Thank you.
Monsieur Fortin, à vous pour 6.
Mr. Fortin for 6 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to all of the witnesses who are here with us this afternoon. I can barely imagine the suffering and despair that these losses could cause for you, and the circumstances particularly in which these things have happened. To lose a child, and then to lose them in the circumstances that you're testifying about this afternoon, I just wonder if anything could be worse than that. It's awful. I don't know what to say to you, except that I have tremendous sympathy for you. Ms. Cobb and Ms. Alexander, you were talking about the delay that's necessary to hear back from parliamentarians. I agree with you. People should be answered more quickly, especially under such circumstances. But above all, in cases such as these, I'm not a member of the government. I'm a member of the Bloc Québécois. We're an opposition party. And I daily criticize the actions of the government. I'm not always in disagreement, but I don't agree with them always any more than I agree or disagree with the Conservative Party and what they says or does, rather. And I agree with all of you to say that the issue before us today is one that is nonpartisan. But when we talk about children who are murdered, I don't see how we can use situations like that to make political arguments, and I will not make any. I don't have any difficult questions to ask of you, and I unfortunately have no solutions. I can't say today that I would do something to solve your problems, and I don't think you'd believe me if I said so. But I can tell you that you are being heard and that your testimony will be taken into consideration in our debates. How all of this will end, I don't know. There are several factors to consider. Obviously, protecting victims is our concern. And I should actually say we should avoid that there be any victims. That should be the main concern. But we have to take into account all of the issues. We have to take into account the society in which we live and the rules that we have given ourselves, individual freedoms, the right to freedom, and the right to not be put in prison without significant justifications. So all of those issues must be taken into consideration. And I won't surprise you by saying that we can't put everyone in prison. Just to be sure that there will be no more crimes, we'll be in jail ourselves. But we have to be diligent. And the delays that are currently in place are not always applied as they should be. And it results in more than troubling situations such as yours. I don't have questions for you. I said it at the outset, but I might stop myself here and say that if any one of you wants to take the floor and speak a bit more, I invite you to. So, Ms. Cobb, I'll invite you first if you have anything you'd like to add to your testimony.
Wish that we could have the ankle monitors For anyone that breaches our laws, domestic violence, if you've been charged with a criminal offense, something other than just a piece of paper, a restraining order, it's not doing anything. It's not doing anything. And I would love for them to be monitored. That's all I ask for. Thank you.
Merci, Madame Cobb.
Thank you, Ms. Cobb. Ms. Alexander, you were interrupted earlier. Would you like to add something to your testimony?
In this country is not protecting victims, it's actually producing more victims. And we would really like to see the sex offender list be public. I think that makes a lot of sense. We would really like the government to understand the psychology of abusers. And I think that that's where we need to base laws. These are not normal individuals. These are dark triad, Machiavellian, psychopathic, antisocial, and narcissistic personality disorders, chemical imbalances that produce the recidivism rates of these crimes that we see so often. And it is not a majority of the population, it's a small subset of the population that keeps getting away with it. And so we need to understand that if someone is charged with strangulation, they are going to do it again. That needs to be the assumption. And I know innocent until proven guilty, but right now it's innocent until she's dead. And so we really need to understand that particularly around sexual assault and intimate partner violence, the recidivism rate is so high that one charge should be in bail, that's it. And we need jails to be better. We need people to get better in jail because when they get out, after being in jail, they generally are worse. So we've asked at my organization with the province, and we've been working very closely with the Ford government and have made an ally there about dealing with these issues and how we can train the judges better, how we can train and provide the tools within the jail so that we can rehabilitate some people. But I'll be honest with you, there are some criminals that cannot be rehabilitated, and we just have to deal with that and throw away the key.
Thank you, Ms. Alexander. We're moving to the second round. We'll start off with Mr. Lawton for 5 minutes, Ms. Dillon for 5 minutes, Mr. Fortin 2 minutes et demie, Mr. Baber 5 minutes, Ms. Latanzi 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you to all the witnesses, not just for your time here, but for the pieces of your soul you had to put on full display here. I think, certainly I speak for my colleagues, we all felt it. We didn't just hear it, we felt it. And I'm new to this chamber. I make no comment as to what's happened in previous parliaments, but I certainly came here largely to deal with some of these issues head on. So I thank you very much for helping us do this. Mr. Broadfoot, I met you this summer at one of the vigils for your daughter, and I saw how the community in London had rallied around her and celebrated her life and all that she did in her 17 years. And sadly, we had to acknowledge all that won't be in the decades that should have come of her life. And I know that you never wanted to have to be the advocate you are, but you have, and we are better off for it, and I'm grateful to that. And you made a comment which is so painfully obvious, but I think it bears repeating here, that if your daughter's abuser had been behind bars, your daughter would still be alive. Now, we have heard testimony from some of the academic set, some of the witnesses that our Liberal colleagues have called, who like to put an emphasis on the rights of the accused. But there is only one life. There's only one shot that we have when intimate partner violence is at issue here. So explain your message, if you could, Mr. Broadfoot, to those who believe that this is an abstract discussion about rights and not a life or death issue for women and girls.
Thank you, Mr. Lawton, and again, thank you for being at the vigil this summer. It was greatly appreciated. How do I answer this? I mean, again, it's if you're defenseless, a defenseless woman or girl, and you're being attacked by your male partner, which is, the statistics show that this is it's a high statistical matter when it comes to the males abusing women. How is this individual supposed to try to protect themselves? We look around, even this room, this committee, and we are bigger than the average woman that is here. And how do they do that? How, again, can putting your hands around somebody's neck, I'll repeat it, literally saying, I am going to decide whether I'm going to let you continue to breathe. How is that strangulation in itself, if you are charged with it, as my daughter's abuser was on the first offense? How is that individual allowed to walk out of that police station on that same very day? And as Jacqueline mentioned, I have not met her personally, but we are unfortunately family. How are we not monitoring these people? And I use that word very loosely. I prefer the word monsters.
I agree. I thank you for that. I'll ask you, Ms. Alexander, I know you've seen at least some of the testimony we've heard to date on the committee, and when you hear people talk in the abstract about the rights of accusers, what does that mean to you?
I wish you could be inside my head right now and know what it feels like to have a 6'3", 225-pound male beating your skull into the floor. I wish you could see the blood that I tried to wash out of my hair in the shower. I wish you could understand the fear of being confined to a space by someone who is double your size. Why in wrestling do we put people in weight classes? Women can't fight this. I asked my stunt double, I said, you're a black belt in all the millions of things. Would you have been able to take him on? She's like, not a chance, Kate. If he, an abuser in that mindset with the adrenaline and the testosterone running through them, if they want to kill you, they will. And I'm alive for the grace of God, of my friends who got a 2-word WhatsApp message. I'm alive because I let him beat me. I had to just let him, because if I fought him back, it got worse. So I just took it and somehow survived. I wish you could understand that, and I'm not allowed to bring props. I got in trouble for that last year. But I can show you the videos and photos of him doing this and the blood splattering. I can show you my black and blue body. I need you to understand that when you're making policy choices. This is not a joke. It's real, and it affects your system for life. And it rips families apart. And it's actually more expensive to do what we're doing right now from a financial level, because there's so many financial consequences for abuse. You can't work, you can't function properly, and it costs billions of dollars to not deal with these individuals properly. Billions of dollars. We need to do better, because this is real. And I'm alive by the grace of God. Unfortunately, Brianna, unfortunately, Madison is not. But I know what their daughters went through. I just live to tell the tale. So I want you to understand, everyone in this room to understand that, and take that and get over your partisan bullshit. Get over it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may, can we request that Ms. Alexander provides any visual or written materials that she is comfortable with to the committee?
You want me to show it on my phone right now?
No,
I've got it. We can play it.
it wouldn't be understanding what you're suggesting, Ms. Alexander. I don't think it would be appropriate at this moment, but certainly you could submit it to the chair and to the.
I was screaming
To the
for my
committee.
life for Michael to stop. We can play the video if you want. Put it on the big screen.
Thank you. Ms. Dillon for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'd like to thank all the witnesses for being here today and sharing the tragedies you've gone through and the loss of your children. It's something that needed to be heard, and thank you for your courage. And it means a lot, I think, to all committee members across all parties. And you are all right that it should not be partisan. None of this should be partisan. And I thank all of the witnesses for repeating this here over and over again. In 2022, I don't know if you know, I presented a bill, C-233, also known as Kira's Law, and it had to do with intimate partner violence. And in 2023, it received royal ascension with unanimous consent from parties across the aisle. Everybody unanimously consented in Parliament. It became a law. And what this law did, it amended the criminal code. And for the first time ever, we even addressed coercive control, which is where a lot of this starts from. And when we look at coercive control, most often it's a stepping stone. And this was never, ever considered as part of the argument. And in Kira's Law, we also saw that judges, and you mentioned Mrs. Basil Cobb, that they need, and Mrs. Alexander, you as well mentioned, judges need better training, judicial education. So this was changed. Electronic monitoring, you mentioned this as well. It requires justices to consider using electronic monitoring as a condition for release orders. And the bill was a result of the advocacy of Kira's mom. This too was very, very painful, the testimony we heard at that time in 2022, 2023. And we saw during COVID everything that was happening, the intimate partner violence, how it shot up. Could you please talk to us a little bit, maybe Mrs. Basil Cobb, we'll start with you, about coercive control, and if we could focus on that and see what better we can do, because these are changes we all did together, we all made together. I presented the bill, but I thank again all parties, and it went to the Senate, and it quickly passed and became part of Section 515, and there are other sections. And then across all provinces as well, we saw that they noticed Kira's Law, and similar laws were enacted. So, Mrs. Basil Cobb, if we could start with you.
If I could just pass it to you first.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. There was a bill tabled by Laurel Collin, NDP 332C, which had unanimous House support, ended up in the Senate at second reading. I'd like that bill to be resurrected. It's thorough. We've added as stakeholders to it. I think that everyone in this room would do well to resurrect that bill, because that would make coercive control a crime, and coercive control is always present in abusive situations. And so that would give the police the grounds, because the problem is right now you have to wait until someone's bleeding before you can press any charges. And so that coercive control bill would help save lives before the blood gets drawn. We also need an amendment to Jordan's Rule, because I know it was done in good faith, but the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Jordan's Rule needs a giant asterisk or a notwithstanding clause usage. We should not be timing out cases simply because we don't have the resources or it hasn't been funded properly. We should not be throwing out. I think it's 30% of sexual assault cases get thrown out under Jordan's Rule now. So that's 30% more offenders that are just out on the street simply because we didn't get to go to court. Those are 278 of the criminal code is another one. In the current law, the defense counsel is able to subpoena all of the victims' hospital records, personal journals, anytime they've talked to anybody in law enforcement, they can subpoena the victim's entire life and weaponize it against them in the court. And they do that. So Section 278 is something we need to look at. Bail, Jordan, the 332C and 278, and I think that would help at least give us a good place to start. But we really ultimately need the court system to be trauma-informed and survivor-centered. Right now, it's the opposite, and it would make my life, I'll never move back to Canada, but it would be the most amazing thing for the country to all come together and say, hey, we're going to do this, we get it. Canada's 20 years behind most developed nations. And so we need, I'd love it if you guys could just do it. Like, really, I think we just, if we could all just get along and get this done and have a justice system that works so that we can have a safe country and have, functioning citizens that contribute to the economy and have good lives.
Thank you so much. And Mrs. Basil Cobb, would you like to add to that?
I was just going to say Bill C-332, or 332, definitely needs to be tabled again, brought back and passed. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It needs to be passed. If I could just ask for anything, especially that bill and all the other ones, Kate, as you've mentioned, but Bill C-332 would allow police officers and everyone to do their jobs easier, more effectively, and keep people safer. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Basil Cobb. Monsieur Fortin pour 2 minutes et demie.
Mr. Fortin for 2.5 minutes. After it will be Mr. Gill. 2.5 minutes. Look, I spoke earlier, and I don't intend to add to that, but I thank the 4 of you for being here with us today. And I reiterate that your testimony will be taken into consideration, and I offer you my most sincere condolences and my sympathies.
For 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair.
Je pensais que vous étiez.
You're all right?
Thank you, Chair. I would like to thank each and every one of you coming here for witnessing. I know, as Mr. Fortin said, he don't have questions for you, and we are speechless. We are really speechless to hear your story. We heard you loud and clear, and I am sorry that this government has failed you, all of you actually. And please accept my heartfelt condolences on your loss and the struggle you have seen in your life. Mrs. Cobb, I would like to ask you, like, not much, but if you could directly to the lawmakers, what would you like to say then?
I'd like to say we do talk about change. And again, I'm not sure why we're so fearful of making that change, but if it happened to your daughter or sister or niece, you wouldn't be so fearful and you would make that change, and you'd make it now, not later. You do it now. Thank you.
I will tell you that in my capacity, I will leave no stone unturned to make these things. I am, like Andrew Lawton said, I am also a first-timer here, and we will do each and everything in our capacity to bring those reforms that will protect victims, and we have to put victims ahead of criminals. What message would you like to send to Canadians and families about offenders breaching their conditions and being given more chances because of weak liberal laws?
I'm just so upset. I'm angry. It just doesn't make sense to me. I would say to the victims, I'm so sorry. I wish I could help. I know the judges are overworked. I know the system is really, really busy. But again, it's more of a message to the criminals. They can just go ahead with a slap on a wrist and get away with it.
I cede my time to the member from York Centre now.
Thank you. Jacqueline, I read your letter earlier today. I can't imagine. I'm so sorry for your loss. And same for you, Brett. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. I wish I wasn't going to say what I'm about to say to you. It's going to be a bit technical. The police is asking to clarify the burden of proof on these reverse onus offenses. C-14 doesn't do that. We're asking them to codify the removal of the latter principle, which compels judges to release at the earliest opportunity on the least restrictive conditions. I don't have confidence that this bill is going to end the revolving door that our sentencing and bail system has become. The bill doesn't deal with young offenders. The bill doesn't deal with parole. It barely touches on sentencing reform. So imagine right now, Kate, imagine that this passes, that this Bill 14 that they're bringing, that it passes, and nothing changes. And now imagine I invite you here a year from now, or 2 years from now. What would you say to my liberal colleagues across the aisle?
Right? This is my third time on committee. It's the same deal. And no, C-14 is not going to work.
Bill C-14 is not going to work. Bill C-14 does not go far enough. I do not understand for the life of me why, listening to the type of testimony that we're listening to today, we're watching some of my liberal colleagues right now not being overly interested in what they're hearing. They have an opportunity. We will get this bill. We can amend it at committee. And I plead with you to please remember today's witnesses. This was the most powerful panel we've had since the beginning of this bail and sentencing study. Let's remember, Jacqueline, let's remember Brad. And by the way, we have offenses against court orders that are now being overlooked, that are subjected to a diversionary framework by virtue of Bill C-75. They're not being prosecuted. This bill does not deal with it. Please ask my colleagues to deal with that. Jacqueline, would you like to do that?
There's unfortunately not time for a response. Mr.
10-second response.
We've gone way over, Mr. Baber. You went way over time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Dillon, over to you for 5 minutes.
Thank you so much, Chair. Mr. Broadfoot, I would like to ask you, please, and again, I reiterate on my behalf, and I think everybody on this committee's behalf, our sadness at the tragedy your family has been subjected to. There are no words, and I see you struggling, and I thank you also for coming and speaking about your daughter. Can you share with the committee anything you think that is important for us to understand about your family's experience in court throughout this whole process, or just experience in general? If you'd like to add anything, and what more would you like to see us doing?
Well, in order to answer your question, I guess you're going to need a little more knowledge. With respect to, you just asked me about in court. We didn't get that opportunity, right? Her abuser took my daughter's life before his court date, which was scheduled for July 31st of 2024. When the police arrived on scene, he was still in action, and they had to take his life in order to try and save my daughter's. So we didn't get any court in that sense. But my daughter and our family was left from March 15th waiting to see what would happen on July 31st, but unfortunately that didn't happen. So I'm sorry I can't answer your question a little bit better, but I hope you understand.
Thank you. I think you helped everybody to better understand this moment all of you went through. not getting any answers either. And I spoke about Kira's Law, and it's something, a private member's bill I had presented, and it swiftly passed through Parliament, through the Senate, to become law, to become part of law. And for the first time ever, we saw coercive control addressed. We saw the Judges Act, where they were to be trained for intimate partner violence, sexual assault, and anything to do with intimate partner violence really became, for the first time ever, I think, really addressed in the criminal code. We spoke about electronic monitoring, Mrs. Basil Cobb, Mrs. Alexander. I think everybody, all witnesses, spoke about the desire for the electronic monitoring, which is available under the criminal code. According to you, do you think, yes?
Sorry, yes.
Yes. So
may
these
I?
are some of the things that we've changed and tried to change. What more would you like to see added?
So, thank you, because you did, when you first spoke earlier, that statement resonated with me, because you used the term the judges have the opportunity to make that decision on ankle monitors and so on. Unfortunately, many of our victims don't make it to that point where these offenders are getting to the judges. I think if it's going to come in, as was just mentioned about making amendments to this bill, that if these violent acts and are being charged, that the ankle monitor doesn't have to go to a judge. It can be done at the police station with their lawyers in hand. Let's not let them walk out of these situations or put them and wait until they get on bail. Let's keep them. So we're waiting for a judge to make a decision that is again, my family's situation was scheduled to be over 3 months later. Right? No, let's bring this back.
Okay.
It should be happening at the very beginning. So yes, when I say ankle monitors and things of that nature, unless you're going to put them in court the next morning, which we know is not going to happen, let's put this into law. You are a violent offender. This is what we do to violent offenders immediately. That's my statement on that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Broadfoot. We are at time for this panel. I want to take a brief moment to thank all witnesses for their courage and their testimony today. We will suspend very briefly and then resume the debate on the amendment that Mr. Lawton proposed last week. So brief suspension, everyone. Thank you.